I moved into the little gray ranch house on Maple Street in the fall of 2004, right after the divorce. The place was cheap, the yard was small, and the previous owners had left the lawnmower in the garage like a kind of apology. I didn't mind. I was 38, newly single, and tired of listening to my own thoughts bounce off the walls of a two-bedroom apartment that still smelled like her perfume. The house next door sat back from the street under a pair of dying elms. It was a two-story colonial, once white, now the color of old bone. The paint peeled in long, curling strips. The porch sagged. The windows on the second floor were permanently shuttered, and the ones on the first floor were filmed over with something that looked like dust and time. No one ever came or went. No lights. No mail stacking up. No newspaper rotting on the steps. Just the house, watching the street the way an old dog watches the road it no longer has the strength to chase. I asked the realtor about it the day I signed the papers. She gave me that careful smile realtors use when they want you to stop asking questions. "Old man Crowley," she said. "Been there forever. Keeps to himself." That was all. At first I barely noticed it. I was busy unpacking boxes, learning which floorboards creaked, figuring out how to live alone again. But the house next door had a way of getting into the corners of your eyes. You'd be washing dishes and catch a glimpse of it through the side window. You'd be taking out the trash and feel it sitting there, heavy and quiet. After a while, I started timing how long I could look at it before something in my chest tightened. I began keeping a sort of mental log. No lights in 20 years, the neighbors said. No visitors, no delivery trucks. The lawn never grew more than a few inches, as if even the grass had given up. Once, in the spring of 2005, I saw a curtain move on the second floor. Just a little twitch, like someone had brushed past it. I stood in my driveway with a bag of mulch in my hands and waited. Nothing else happened. The curtain hung still again, gray and tired. I told myself it was the wind. That summer I started walking the dog past the place every evening, even though I didn't own a dog. I'd borrowed my sister's mutt for a week and kept the habit after I gave him back. I'd slow down when I reached Crowley's property line and stare at the front door. Sometimes I imagined knocking. Sometimes I imagined the door opening on its own. By October, I was standing in my dark kitchen at 2 in the morning, coffee gone cold in my hand, just looking at the side of that house. The windows reflected nothing, not the street light, not the moon, just a flat, oily blackness that seemed deeper than glass. I started taking pictures with a cheap digital camera. I told myself it was curiosity, research, something to do with my hands. I photographed the peeling paint, the cracked walkway, the way the shadows pooled under the porch even at noon. One night, I zoomed in on the downstairs window closest to my property and saw, for half a second, a pale oval shape pressed against the glass from the inside. A face. I dropped the camera. It hit the linoleum and the battery cover popped off. When I picked it up and looked again, the window was empty. Just that same dead reflection. I didn't sleep much after that. I began leaving my own lights on at night. All of them. The bedroom, the hallway, the living room. I told myself it was because the dark felt thinner somehow, like it had holes in it. In truth, I wanted the house next door to see me. I wanted it to know I was watching back. One Thursday in November, the power went out on our block for 3 hours. When the lights came back, I walked through my house, turning things off, and found every single curtain on the side facing Crowley's place pulled open. I hadn't touched them. I lived alone. There was no one else who could have done it. That was the night I stopped pretending this was still curiosity. I started sleeping in the living room recliner with a baseball bat across my knees, facing the window that looked directly into the side of Crowley's house. Most nights nothing happened. The windows stayed dark. The house stayed still. But every so often, maybe once a week, I would see it. A shape. standing just far enough back from the glass that the features never quite resolved. Broad shoulders, a head that tilted slightly, the way a person tilts their head when they're listening hard. It never moved while I was looking. Only when I blinked, or when I glanced away to check the clock, would it be closer, or gone. I called the police once. 2 officers came out, young guys with tired eyes. They walked the property line, shone flashlights at the windows, and told me there was no sign of forced entry or recent activity. One of them said, "Sometimes old houses settle funny, plays tricks on the eyes." They didn't write anything down. By December, I had stopped going to work. I told my boss I had the flu. I sat in that recliner for 16 hours a day. Curtains open, lights blazing, waiting. The shape came more often. Sometimes it was on the first floor, sometimes higher up, behind the shutters I had always believed were sealed. Once I saw 2 shapes, standing close together, as if one were whispering to the other. I started talking to it, quietly at first, just muttering, "I see you. I know you're there. What do you want? Why won't you come out?" It never answered. It only watched. On the night of January 12th, during a hard freeze that turned the streets to glass, I finally did what I had been circling for months. I put on my coat, took the baseball bat, and walked across the frozen lawn to Crowley's front porch. The wood groaned under my weight like something waking up. I raised my fist to knock and stopped. The door was already open, not wide, just a few inches, enough to show a slice of deeper darkness inside. I should have turned around. Every part of me that still remembered how to be a reasonable man screamed to turn around. Instead, I pushed the door the rest of the way open and stepped inside. The air was cold and thick, and smelled of dust and old paper and something faintly sweet, like fruit left too long in a bowl. The hallway stretched ahead of me, lined with closed doors. No furniture, no pictures, just bare walls and a staircase that climbed into black. I took 3 steps in. That was when I heard it, soft, wet, the sound of something shifting its weight on the floor above me. I looked up the stairs. A pale face was looking back down. It was not old. It was not young. It was simply wrong, in the way a face becomes wrong when it has been pressed against glass for too many years, learning the shape of the person on the other side. The eyes were the worst part. They knew me. They had been studying me through every window, every night, every hour. I thought I was the one doing the watching. Behind that face, further up the stairs, other faces began to appear. Some were familiar in a way that made my stomach turn. I recognized the tilt of a head, the slope of a shoulder. I recognized the way one of them held its hands, fingers slightly curled, the same way I held mine when I was nervous. They had been practicing. I backed up until my shoulders hit the doorframe. The first face tilted, almost politely, and began to descend the stairs. The others followed. None of them rushed. They had waited 20 years. They could wait a few more seconds. I turned and ran. I made it across the yard and into my own house and locked every door and every window and pushed the recliner against the wall so I could see all the approaches at once. I sat there until dawn with the bat across my knees, listening to the quiet. When the sun came up, Crowley's house looked exactly as it always had. Peeling paint, dead windows, no sign that anyone had ever opened the door. But the curtains in my living room were open again, and in the glass of the side window, for just a moment before the light changed, I saw a reflection that did not belong to me. It smiled the way I smile when I'm trying not to show I'm afraid. I still live here. I keep the lights on. I keep the curtains open. Because if I close them, I won't know when they start practicing my face from the other side of the glass. And some nights, when the wind is right, I can hear them moving around in that house next door. Soft, patient footsteps, learning the sound of my name.